Hey everyone, this is Louis7 and I have some news to share for the Lord of the Rings Online, and that is that Update 30 Blood of Azog is coming out tomorrow, June 8th, and it does have the usual maintenance of 8 AM to 12 PM Eastern Time. So for today's video, let's go ahead and review the patch. There are a number of exciting things coming with Update 30, and there is, of course, major content in the form of a quest pack, so it is going to be included with VIP or purchasable from the LOTRO store. There also are a lot of class balance and level 130 endgame changes coming in this, and there's even some slight role reworks that we will get to. Just to point out, the in-depth review of the class balance will be coming in its own separate video, but still with this one we'll overview all that, and the background gameplay I should point out will also mostly be from Update 30 beta on the classes that got changed, but I honestly didn't record all that much from the beta, so I may have to just put in some filler content later on. And quickly, before we actually get into the details, I want to briefly mention a new LOTRO website that is in the works called LOTRO Foundry. This is being developed by a couple LOTRO players who serve as a community-driven platform containing guides, news, and other content to just kind of be a general community hub for LOTRO players. While it's still in the early development stage, I am going to be planning on contributing with my own content on there eventually, so I will leave a link to that page in the description, and I encourage you to check it out if you are interested. Anyway, with this update there are 3 new key content features to cover. First, there's the new interlude Blood of Azog, which continues the storyline and the Legacy of Durins and the Trials of Dwarves, even though it's not technically a part of that book quest series. So this just continues once again with the War of Three Peaks and all the events going on there, but one key feature of this is it will take you back in time. You'll experience some historical moments with the dwarves. And the storyline will begin with Glowin inside Anak Curfu, which is in the Elderslade Zone. And one of the exciting parts of that storyline is actually the second key content feature, which is the Tales of Your Azanabalzar, which is essentially the new landscape zone, the new open world landscape content we are getting in this update, which is the Azanabalzar zone. So Azanabalzar is actually the Dimral Dale just west of Lothlorien and just east of Moria that is currently in the game, but it is totally revamped landscape and back in time. We're going back into the Third Age 2799. And perhaps for some people familiar with Mordor Besieged, it will behave kind of similarly like that, as in you will have to port in and port out of it and all this such. But covering what Azanabalzar actually is it is the zone during the 6th War of the Dwarves and Orcs. And once again you will continue the Blood of Azog storyline there, as well as the zone quests of course that are going on in that area. Along with all that, with this zone we are going to be getting 10 new missions, and of course like all the other missions they scale from level 20 to 130 and will have their own reward system it looks like. Also with missions there is one other kind of minor change that could be easily glossed over, and that is now that all mission stable masters are interconnected, so you can travel between mission hubs very easily now. But that is what we are getting for new questing content, and the final key piece of content is the new raid, the Fall of Khazad-dûm. So this is a very exciting raid. It actually goes back further in time than when we have the Tales of Yore, and the key feature of this raid as this single boss is going to be Durin's Bane, the famous Balrog. So I am personally super excited to jump into that raid. I did not do that in the beta of course, but setting that aside, with the raid we will have tier 1 through 3 available right now, and then in the future we'll have Tier 4 open up on June 17th, and finally Tier 5 open up on July 1st. But that is it for the raid, and we can go ahead and move on. And with that, we have covered all the major content features coming in Update 30 Blood of Azog. So next up, we should review some of the group content related changes. And first here, there are new raid revive limits coming to the game. This is going to be a new raid mechanic where you have certain amount of revives available during boss fights and the such. And for anybody wondering, it does look like this is only coming into effect in the new raid, so based on the patch notes it doesn't sound like this will affect any old content in the game, only the new raid, the Fall of Khazad-dûm. So this feature actually depends on the tier that you run the raid, and just so everybody knows, tier 1 this mechanic does not come into a play. You do not have raid revive limits, you don't have to worry about that if you run at tier 1, it's just tier 2 plus, and the way it works is you accumulate revives over time. You start at tier 2 with 3 revives for example, and you will get a new revive every 60 seconds. The way you consume a revive is during combat. If you res somebody and they accept it, they have to accept it, then you will have a revive taken away from the counter. And I will put the numbers on the screen, but for tier 3 it's 2 revives and then you get one every 2 minutes. For tier 4 and 5 it's 1 revive each of those, but for tier 4 it's going to be 1 new revive every 3 minutes, and tier 5 1 new revive every 4 minutes. So this will limit the amount of reses you can use, especially on these higher tier difficulties, in combat during boss fights. Again, just to reiterate, it does sound like this will only come into effect on the new raid, but of course we will test that, and I'm sure people will find out quickly if it does actually come into play with some of the current level 130 raids or even stuff before that. Alright, now we can move on to some exciting things with class changes. So quickly, I do want to say that I think it's just awesome to actually see some serious work put into class balance, which I think is long overdue. Well, after all this, I still definitely think there's some stuff that can be done, a lot that needs to be done actually. This is one step closer to having classes more in balance with each other. So across the board, one change you will see is support in general is being nerfed. It seems the goal of this is to help make support maybe less necessary, but still very useful of course in group content and raids. This may allow more flexibility in group composition, and I am personally all for that. So hopefully it actually does work out in practice, and again we will play through update 30 and see how that actually works out. I also do want to point out with these support nerfs, a lot of content itself at level 130 has also been nerfed, so players won't start just struggling a ton when this update gets released without these strong support skills. But let's go ahead and move on and talk about some more specific changes with each class, and I am again just overviewing them. So first of all, with the Bear Warning, it's having its damage buffed overall, and it has a minor rework to Expose and Vigilant Roar. Next up, the Burglar is having a few of their debuffs nerfed just like all the other support classes. And the Captain has received a number of changes. They're probably the most significantly changed class in this update. They have had some nerfs to Yellow Line, which will hopefully make it more in line with, say, the Guardian and Beorning tanks in terms of overall power level. And also with the Captain, the Red Line support with Telling Mark has received a small nerf. And then another change I do want to point out actually in general in this update is you will see some fellowship-wide buffs are going to be raid-wide now, and this does include the Captain's buff. So I am honestly super excited for this change because it again offers flexibility in group composition. For example, right now it's very helpful, like almost 100% required for some things, to have 2 captains in a raid, 1 in each fellowship, so everybody in the raid can take advantage of captain buffs. Well, with this, you can maybe get full raid benefits from just 1 captain. So yes, that is something I am personally looking forward to. But next up, we have the Guardian, and their tanking wasn't much changed. I know that's been a big thing in the community, wanting Guardian to be buffed. Hopefully with the captain nerfs, the Guardian doesn't even need to be buffed too much. And with the Guardian, the actual changes they got is they have received a damage boost for a lot of their abilities, and Sting has a slightly shorter cooldown, at half a second shorter actually. And moving on with the Lore Master, their debuffs of course have been nerfed. It's actually just Fire and Frost Lore that has been nerfed, but actually Wind Lore has been buffed. Another thing that has been buffed with the Lore Master is their damage. Next up, we have another tactical class with the Minstrels, and their anthems will now be raid-wide, and Anthem of War has also been nerfed with them. Finally, for the last class that got some changes today, we have the Runekeeper, and their red line overall was buffed in terms of damage, and they have also had some minor trait and skill changes to go along with that as well. But that is it for all the class changes in the overview here, and again, I plan to dive more in depth with these changes in a later video, once the update is out and we can actually test and play with all this in game. But moving on, we are at the more miscellaneous type changes coming in this update, and first of all, we do have the Virtues cap increasing to level 75. Kind of along those lines, we are also getting an update to loot boxes, which I know basically nobody is probably excited about, but with the loot boxes you can get up to item level 432 gear with a chance to create 434 to be more in line probably with the power level in update 30. Shifting gears a little bit to talk about crafting, there is a new recipe from the Crafting Guild where you can disenchant the output for some Ithilgalad crafting components. There are a few housing changes, but most of them are bug fixes. There is one I want to point out, which is when you sell a premium house, it used to be you would only get 70% of what you bought in terms of housing writs. when you sold the house, now it will be 90%, so a little bit better value if you do decide to sell your premium house. You will now get 90% of your housing writs. One random note that I am actually excited for in this update is Anniversary Eagle and Summer Days fireworks can be used while mounted. It's exciting to do things while mounted, and shooting out fireworks definitely sounds exciting to me, so I will be interested in trying that with those specific fireworks and see how that actually looks. Next up, we have a new Figment to Splendor vendor coming, Roa and Raspberry, which is one of the rotating ones, and it sounds like they are also getting some new cosmetics, which will be interesting to check out what they have. Moving on to the final section with quests and adventure areas, I already mentioned some balance changes coming with level 130 content, so there are going to be updates to Rumor Chant, the Houses of Lamentation, and again all the instances at level 130. And finally, there are several bug fixes, which is always welcome. Alright, that is all I have for this video on Update 30 Blood of Azog. I am looking forward to playing this update. You will probably see me streaming it tomorrow right here on YouTube. And again, stay tuned for the video specifically on the class balance changes. And finally, I did want to remind everyone again about the LOTRO Foundry site and to check that out if you are interested. And perhaps if you do have thoughts on that, you can comment below. Otherwise, as far as this video goes, I hope you all enjoyed it and learned something useful about Update 30 Blood of Azog in the Lord of the Rings Online. And if you did, please consider liking and subscribing for more or becoming a channel member to support the content, and thanks for watching everyone.